Legalize it. Mr. Peter Tosh there. Famous song. We love him. You are listening to Voice of Vashon. This is Borderlines. And guess what? We're doing a 420 show because it's 420. I have on the air with me Mr. Shango Los.
Hello. Happy day to you.
He's been a keynote in a lot of stuff. The last time I met you, Shango, your head was in a beehive. That was like 4 years ago. And then things happened and we went on this trajectory and it found you, it seems like.
Yeah, not doing quite as much beekeeping anymore, but spending most of my time traveling the country, doing business consulting and teaching how to use cannabis for health.
Responsibly.
Medicinally. Yeah. Medicinally, yeah.
Legally, obviously. Great. Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so bringing it on to a much more micro level, we have very relevant to today, very well timed. Thanks for coming in on very short notice. Like, hey, you want to come talk with me?
Well, that's the advantage of working from home and working on the island, right? If you want me, I'm here.
Boom. And one thing that's on the table right now on this little wee island of ours is a possible marijuana ban, and the county is hearing different opinions right now. Shango, would you hit some finer points about what this is?
Sure. I'll break it down.
Awesome.
So, for the sake of clarity, since that's why you have me here, let's address the word ban, right?
Sure.
Because on the Facebook pages, people are saying, well, wait, did Varsa really ask for a ban, or did they just ask for restricted zoning?
Okay.
And that's where the rub is, right? Because as of right now, and the reason why there is no cannabis store on the island today, is that the zoning is already incredibly restricted on the island.
Yeah.
A cannabis store would have to be in a commercially zoned location, and then it also has to be 1,000 feet from any kind of licensed daycare or school. Well, because we've got a small downtown core, that's pretty much the whole downtown core.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the other parts of the island, Burton's not legal. The Docton store is too far south, and it's too far south to stay in business, and it's for sale, not for rent. The old Portage store is in bad shape and has most likely reverted to residential zoning because it's not used its commercial variants in so many years.
Kind of mothballed.
And there's nothing really appropriate near Mingleman. So that just means downtown core. And so, in my role as the founder of the cannabis trade organization on the island, Vimea, when everybody was hot to trot for getting their licenses and everything, I was approached by, 5 or 6 different groups to help them find a location on the island.
Yeah.
And so we dug out the King County parcel viewer and talked to landowners and worked out on the numbers and realized that there's really only about 4 locations on the island that could actually even have a recreational store, and those are already occupied by longtime Vashon businesses.
Yeah.
So in essence, even if someone were to have a license, there's not really a location today to put it.
Okay, and so we are left with scratching our heads and going, how are we going to do this?
Exactly. And so the challenge with the Varsa proposal was that they want to make it even more restrictive so that there couldn't be a store here in the downtown area if a location were to arise. And so that becomes a ban, right? Because then that makes it zero possibility. So they certainly don't call it a ban. And I've spoken with the vice president of Varsa this morning. We had a nice hour-long conversation,
Good.
and that was not their intention.
Right.
They mostly just want to keep cannabis out of the hands of children, which I support that.
Yes.
And they feel that, you kind of have to be close to zero tolerance so that we don't set a poor example for children, and that we have some difference of opinion on tolerance. Because, my role is as a patient advocate. And for me, I talk to and work with patients on Vashon who get relief every day from cannabis, from their Parkinson's, or they're using it to cure their cancer, or they're using it for their arthritis, or they use it topically for eczema, or all of these different people. They come to me and we talk, and then I recommend for them products that they can get over town at at Canna West Seattle, which is a kind of an ally of ours, I'd say. And send them on their way. And it is uniformly inconvenient for them to go over town. And some of the patients, they're being sick it's expensive. And a lot of these folks, they don't have a car. It's hard for them to get over town. And it would be so much more convenient if we had a location on the island where adults could get adult use cannabis for their own enjoyment and, you know, anxiety relief and just to have a good time. And patients could get patient-centric products that they can use to get relief. And unfortunately, the Varsa proposal would disallow that.
Right. It was just completely gone. And I do encourage listeners to check out varsanetwork.org/zone to see their position. It's just in fairness and transparency, it's a good idea to see what they're talking about. The main issues, really, if you boil it down, their position is that having retailers here in the commercial zone would send a message of access and also community tolerance, and they don't want to set that precedent for kids. That's really what it boils down to, in essence, is just access and tolerance. And if I've always, because I am a parent of now 18 and 20-year-olds, but at the time, coming up through school, I was that parent who always got the community attitude survey, right? And I would fill it out, and with great interest, I would be sharking that website. Where are the findings? I want to see. I didn't always see them, which is really annoying because I pour your blood, sweat, and tears and 10 pages, into clicking on all these things. And I want to know how'd we roll? What is our island sentiment? Really, and even then, there's still nuggets on the website. It would be really good to see the entire thing. Yeah,
it certainly would be. And, one of the interesting aspects about it is that, when I was speaking with them this morning, I was pointing out that, if their goal is truly to keep cannabis out of the hands of children, the best thing to do would be actually to support a retail store on the island, because there's no chance that kids are going to go in and purchase cannabis at a store, because every single cannabis store in the state is on pins and needles just trying to keep their license. In fact, in the last study in Washington showed that cannabis stores were 94% compliant last year, and that's 10% better than liquor stores were. And as we saw when we had Kevin Bergen's medical dispensary store on the island, the amount of gray market growers drastically decreased, because people like to be able to go to one location where they can get their same strain of preference for or their medicine in a repeatable fashion. And anybody who's ever gone to buy pot from somebody, it's a different strain every time, and you have to meet them on their schedule, and it's not as convenient as a retail location. And so the studies that have been done in both Washington and Colorado show very clearly that when you create a retail store, youth access goes down because it supplants a good part of the gray market.
And as an islander, everybody knows everybody. And you see a kid kind of walking past a shop, you're going to know. And it's going to be like somebody on the other side of the island's going to know, quickly.
Yeah, those things get around here really fast.
So it's not like you can go tiptoe and be stealth. There's no hiding. So I like that idea because, you're either out there and it's legal or it's not. And it does take kind of that gray area straight away, and I love that.
One of the interesting aspects of this, though, is that while I thought it was important to alert our community to Varsa's policy and how they were trying to influence the zoning through the community plan, there never really was any likelihood that the Varsa plan was going to get adopted.
I see.
It's important for people to participate in their democracy and email Bradley Clark at King County to voice their opinion. But King County is very clear that they do not want to make a zoning cutout on Vashon.
Okay.
It's the same thing that happened when Edipure wanted to move into K2. They were very clear that they didn't want to change the zoning for Edipure to make it unlike everywhere else in the county. Similarly, except now it's on the flip, is our good friend, Councilman Joe McDermott. He was very clear, like, listen, we're not going to make a cutout for Vashon Island just to make it more restrictive than the rest of King County. And as we've been making the community plan, no version of it had an increased restriction. That being said, as a passionate patient advocate, I needed to make sure that, we dotted the I's and crossed the T's and people weighed in because, a group of concerned parents can do a lot of damage sometimes.
So I'm that parent that had weed tests in my house because guess what? They work. They totally work. And that, I think, is one of the best ways that you can nip things in the bud.
Great pun.
Pun was not intended, but they slip out. I'm a copywriter.
And, I herald that, right? Because, even though some people might think that giving your kids a UA is invasive, you are doing responsible parenting in your home, That kind of instruction should come from the parent in the home, and it should not be something that should be a island-wide regulatory issue.
Correct. I think there's a lot to be said for just starting at home. And here's the thing, complete disclosure. Has there been weed in my house? Absolutely. Do I have a neurologist? Absolutely. Chief of Neurology at Swedish is the first person that said, let's write this into your medical plan. If gabapentin isn't working for you, I have chronic myelitis. I was looked at in 2009 for probable MS, and I still have lesions on my spinal cord, and it causes a whole lot of chaos. I live with it every day. But did I have weed in my house? Have I? Absolutely. Have I had some really honest conversations with my children? Had to. Yeah.
And similarly, when I moved to the island, the reason why I finally made the jump, I had been coming here for years to visit and volunteer on the organic food farms, but I finally made the jump after my brain injury. I had a traumatic brain injury from a dual concussion, and my neurologist as well. He's all like, I really think that medical marijuana would be good for you. And so I looked into it, and it helped me with my migraines, and it helped me, reset my neural net. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand about medical marijuana is, it is not a bunch of people smoking joints. I mean, certainly smoking is the appropriate medicine for a lot of people, no doubt. But the vast majority of them are going to be looking for something to take orally, like a tincture and sometimes an edible. And there's so many different ways that you can take medical cannabis. It's not just for stoners anymore, right? And honestly, it didn't used to be either. I mean, the cannabis was 70% of the pharmacopoeia before it was prohibited. And, we had used it as a society for thousands of years, and then it became politically unpopular, and here we are today. Let's get really politically unpopular and play a song by Black Uhuru, Sensimilla, and we'll be back. Right on.
Black Uhuru, stock of Sensimilla. And depending on where you look on iTunes, you'll see it. Sensimilla, Sensimina, Sensimilia, Sensimilla. You take your pick.
Here's a fun factoid. Do you want to know what that is?
Talk to us.
It's not as important as it used to be, but in the 70s and stuff, when cannabis was coming from the tropic areas, they were growing it in these huge fields, and they didn't separate the boys from the girls. And so the girls would get pollinated, and they would start to grow seeds, and then they would just harvest those and ship them here to the United States. Well, then it became the super premium cannabis that they would go through, and when they started showing sex, they would pull out all the boys so that the females would not spend their plant energy making seeds. And so they started shipping seedless marijuana to the United States, and that blew everybody away. And so that was the thing. But now, as the U.S. has developed its own industry, indoor during Prohibition and now outdoor as well, no seeds is kind of an assumption.
It's like, that's the given.
Yeah, that's the standard.
And seeds have to be sought out.
Yeah, that's true. They're hard to find good ones sometimes.
A good seed is hard to find. Let's go back to what we were talking about a little while ago, the quote-unquote marijuana ban on Vashon Island. People have an opportunity to make their voices heard. One of them is this evening, correct?
Yes, it is, yeah. This evening is our island's yearly town hall. So the meeting is not specifically about cannabis zoning, but Councilman McDermott will be there, the sheriff will be there, and various other King County folks, and so we Vashonites are invited to show up and sign up, and we can speak on anything you want. So if you want to talk about law enforcement on the island, or zoning, or cannabis, or the homeless issue, or whatever, you can show up. And that's tonight at McMurray Middle School from 6:30 to 8:30. And I know that a lot of folks in favor of allowing cannabis on the island are showing up. And even if you're in favor of the zoning, I just encourage people to show up and voice your democratic rights. Participate in the process. Certainly, since I'm an advocate for cannabis, I hope more of our people show up. But that's important. And also, if you can't make it to the meeting, you can also email Bradley Clark. And I think you've got the email address there, don't you?
I do. It's Bradley. It's BRADLEY.Clark, CLARK, at kingcounty.gov.
And Brad's a really nice guy, so don't feel like you have to get all vehement with him about a potential ban. He's a really nice guy. He's objective, and he's just collecting our community's feedback to give to King County Council before they vote.
Perfect. That's awesome. I would love to hear about what you're up to these days.
Well, I think you're specifically talking about the Kickstarter because
Yes.
I travel the country now, and I do keynote addresses at cannabis conventions and do consulting for new startups, and mostly I teach medical care providers, both licensed doctors and naturopaths, how to use cannabis in the clinic. But specifically this week on Monday, I launched a media campaign connected with a Kickstarter. And the idea behind it is that it's far too common that visitors come into a home that have got cannabis edibles in them, and maybe they're in the fridge, maybe they're in a in a pantry or something, but they're unlabeled. And so the babysitter or the grandma, looks at the treats and are like, those look like good treats. I would like to eat that brownie or that bag of gummy bears or whatever it is. And so they go ahead and eat them, and it isn't until after the fact, when they're uncomfortably medicated, that they realize that they're getting high. And so I pulled together nearly 100 so far of the top cannabis companies in the country who wanted to support labeling in the home, and we started this Kickstarter, which is just providing stickers to people to label their container that they keep their edibles in their home. And a lot of people say, well, aren't there already warning stickers on the cannabis packages? Well, sure, that's true, but people ignore them. People take the edibles out of it. People make brownies at their own home. The point is that we want to start a new habit in the scene. We want to make it a new assumption that if you have cannabis edibles in your home, you have them in a container that is labeled from the outside, so that we decrease the likelihood that visitors to our home, like babysitters, will accidentally be medicated, because it's just nobody wins when somebody gets accidentally medicated, especially if they get over medicated and it's really unpleasant. If anybody wants to look into it, you can check out that Kickstarter. Instead of giving you the very long Kickstarter link, you can just go to my website at www.shapingfire. That's shapingfire.com/Kickstarter. And it will go ahead and forward you to the page. And you can get stickers for your home for as little as $5. And if you manage a parent organization on the island, there are larger packages for you in case you want to get them and have them available for your members. It's just a way for the cannabis industry, businesses, cannabis enthusiasts, and patients to all work together to address this issue that is becoming more common, because simply there's more cannabis in more homes now than at any point since Prohibition, and it's something that we can decrease the likelihood of. So we are.
I have a feeling you're going to get support on both sides of the fence where this is concerned.
I totally agree. Obviously, people who are cannabis positive, they want to keep their grandmas and babysitters from accidentally getting dosed. But also, concerned parent types, or folks that are more concerned about cannabis at all, they're supporting it as well. Actually, we just launched on Monday, and so we're only 4 days in. We're already 25% of the way to our goal, because the support's been pretty heavy duty.
This is a great time to let you know that the views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the board, staff, underwriters or donors of Voice of Vashon. And as an organization, VOV does not take political positions. We do support our show hosts, like me, and their guests in expressing their views as long as they're not obscene or hate-mongering. Thanks for listening.
I think we'll be avoiding the obscenities and hate-mongering today.
Let's do that. Actually, funny fact, I had quite a time because I wanted to bring rap 420 songs in as well as reggae.
Good luck finding a clean one.
And there was a lot of E's down the playlist though, and I was going, oh, come on. All right, I would like to move into another song. But before that, I want to let you know that Voice of Vashon will record tonight's town hall meeting, and it will be on Voice of Vashon television and on voiceofvashon.org. So if you can't make it, please tune in either to the TV component or the radio component, and we got you covered. All right, let's move back into it. Greetings from Ja from Half Pint. We'll be back with Shango one more time. Half Pint. Greetings I bring from Ja. I wish I could do patois. It's so lame at it. You are here in the studio with me, Heidi, and Shango Los.
Hello, hello.
And we are talking about all kinds of things related to marijuana. First, we started with Vashon. We started a little bit into what Shango's doing between educating the educators, basically, and being a keynote everywhere. And if you go look at his website and under events, the man is prolific. He's everywhere. It's crazy. I don't know when you're here. Like, I'm going to actually freak out the next time I say, oh my God, he's actually on the island.
Well, luckily, I mean, I try to leave the island as little as possible because that's why I moved here, is to get out of the city. Yeah. I tend to travel to speak off the island about twice a month or so. I try to not do it more than that. But then, you add a Vimeo meeting, like, actually, this is a good point. I should plug the upcoming Vimeo meeting.
Go.
On May 18th, it's a Thursday night at the Grange Hall, which is located in the North End Ferry Dock parking lot. At 7 p.m., we are having a guest speaker up from Portland. It's going to be a great fellow by the name of Ben Cassidy, and the topic is all about terpenes and cannabis aromatherapy. What a lot of people don't realize is, they know about THC and CBD as two components of cannabis. THC being the part that makes you feel high, and CBD, the part that replenishes your endocannabinoid system. But they don't realize that the smell of the plant is actually incredibly healing as well for you. And so Ben's going to be coming up and speaking to everybody who shows up for free about how terpenes affect your body, how to use terpenes in your everyday life, even without cannabis, and to help people kind of choose the terpenes that they might want when shopping for cannabis.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a great thing.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
A few questions. What's the scoop these days on growing your own
Sure.
marijuana?
So the overarching response is that it is illegal to grow your own cannabis in Washington, period. And that's unfortunate because, most of the other states, they allow every resident to grow 6 plants. But here in Washington, we did not do that. And so for you to be able to legally grow at your home, you need to have an authorization from your medical authorization from your doctor.
I see.
And so if you just have that authorization, you're allowed to grow 4 plants. Now, if you join the state's registry of patients, that 4 plants jumps up to 6 plants.
Okay.
And then there's a place at the bottom of the authorization where your doctor can write in that you can actually have up to 15 plants if you show need for it.
Wow.
But then you also have to be on the registry, and being on the registry means that they can come and check out your grow at your home if they want to.
Yeah.
Which I don't know a lot of people who want to give up that kind of right.
Stranger danger.
Yeah, exactly. So the registry has not been very successful with the state so far.
Yeah.
And so to repeat, it's 4 plants if you have a medical authorization. That goes to 6 if you join the registry, up to 15 with it written on your authorization. But honestly, the enforcement of individual growing is so low that what we have found on the island is that, the traditional, what people think of as black market growers that were so prevalent on Vashon in the 80s and 90s, they have just decreased and decreased because first the medical industry was there, and there were there were shops to go to, which decreased the number of black market growers. And now that has also happened with recreational to a certain degree. The prices are still relatively high in recreational, so there still is price competition there. But the rise of growing has been just individual people, retired professors, parents in a family where either they or their children have got a medical need, folks who just like to get high and they believe that they should have the right. So, people get their hands on seeds and clones, one way or another, and then they just, they grow a handful of plants on their back porch just for themselves. And that actually has become the highest growing, if you will, segment of the growing population on the island. It's a lot less growing for business anymore, and a lot more people just growing just like they do their tomato plants.
It's a DIY MJ.
Yeah, it's a DIY MJ. Totally.
Very cool. I mean, it's so for 4 plants in the Pacific Northwest. Any idea what that means in terms of actual usable marijuana?
Well,
like
the short answer I would say is no, because there's so much variability in the yield of the plant based on the strain and how well you tend to it and the kinds of nutrients you give
Human error.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can have a plant that does poorly and you get an ounce or less off of it, but that you could also grow a huge plant and get 4 ounces off it and feel like a real winner. Loosely, when people push me, I say, if you do your job right, pencil out for 2 ounces, and when you do better than that, you can pat yourself on the back.
Yeah. Okay.
But honestly, most people they grow it because what they say cannabis is the gateway to horticulture. Because people who have never really kept a garden before, once they get into relationship with a cannabis plant and they have that connection with nature and they've got their hands in the soil and the I don't know if it's called husbandry for plants, but the taking care of another life form, it's very intimate. And once you do that, suddenly you've changed your relationship with all plants. And so I see that catch on all the time.
If that works, that's a good thing.
It's certainly anti-anxiety to grow a plant, just the growing it itself.
Yeah, there's
and then
proof
when you're
of that,
done, you can either make medicine out of it, or a tincture, or edibles, or just toke it. And one way or another, it's probably increasing your quality of life.
There's actually studies not about growing marijuana, but just having your hands in the dirt. It's very cathartic, and same with walking in the forest and taking a jump into Puget Sound.
I'm a big fan of forest baths.
Yeah, yeah, it's a thing.
It is a thing.
It is a thing. Shango Los, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to keep the music going. Any parting words?
Well, I would say, voice your opinion. Get involved with our local politics. Come on out tonight if you can. Email Bradley Clark if you can't. And just remember that even if people are holding an opinion that is different than yours, we're all neighbors and treat each other with respect.
Thank you so much, Shango.
Thanks for having me.
On to the music. Voice of Vashon.